welcome to Economics Outlook. Today we will learn about the ordinal utility analysis, one of the fundamental concept of consumer behavior. So what is consumer behavior? Consumer behavior refers to the behavior of the consumer while purchasing goods and services in the market. Even though many goods and services are available in the market, I cannot purchase all the goods and services are available in the market because I have the limited resources, limited income, and I have unlimited wants. So through the limited resources, through the limited income, I try to satisfy unlimited wants. So as a consumer, I purchase the goods and services according to my choices, preference, and the budget constraint. All these things are basically related to the consumer behavior. So in economical terminology, what is consumer behavior? It is the rational decision making process. So while we're talking about the rational decision making process, here we are talking about what is rational. It is basically the consistent and stability of the consumer, such as at the price of 20 rupees per kg tomato, I purchase 5 kg. At the price of 80 rupees, if I purchase same quantity 5 kg, that means I am not a rational consumer, I am irrational, because we know that price and quantity demanded, according to the law of demand, there is a negative relationship between the price and the quantity. Higher the price, lower the quantity demanded, lower the price, higher the quantity demanded. There is a negative relationship between the price and quantity demanded. So while you talking about the consumer behavior, it is basically a rational decision making process by which the consumer spend their entire income or spend their limited income among different alternatives to attain the maximum utility from the purchase of the goods and services. So here we are talking about the consumer behavior, basically the decision making process, or basically the rational decision making process, due to there is a limited resources and the income. So here we are talking about the preference, whether I am purchasing the tomato or whether I am purchasing the chair, whether I am purchasing the laptop, whether I am purchasing the tablet, whether I am purchasing the smartphone, or whether I am purchasing the books. So here we are talking about the preference. Here we are talking about the choices. Or these preference, these choices are made in such a way which gives the maximum satisfaction to the consumer. So the rational decision making process is basically related to the consumer behavior. So while we're talking about the consumer behavior, one of the most important point arises here: the consumer spent the income or limited income to purchasing the goods and services in a rational manner, which ultimately gives the maximum satisfaction or the utility. So here we are talking about the utility. Basically, why the consumer purchasing chair? Why I am using laptop? Why we purchasing the vegetables? Why we purchasing the fan? We purchasing all the goods and services because they possess to satisfying the human wants. Human wants. That means we purchasing the goods and services because each goods and services have a unique utility value. So what is utility? And the goods and services are purchased by the consumer because they have the utility value. What is utility? Utility refers to the wants satisfying capacity of goods and services. I am using laptop because laptop poses some of the want satisfying capacity. I am using chair because chair have some of the it have some of the utility value. So while we're talking about the utility, how can we measure the utility? We can measure the utility through the different approaches. So let's talking about the utility analysis approaches in the economy. Before we discuss ordinal utility, let's us take a glimpse of cardinal utility. So what is cardinal utility and what are the problems of cardinal utility? So cardinal utility, it is basically developed by Professor Marshall and other neoclassical economists. And according to the cardinal utility, utility can be measured numerically or quantitatively, and there is a imaginary measurement units which is known as the utils. Suppose a consumer have eaten or consuming an apple and get 20 units of utils. Suppose a person consuming an orange get 40 number of utils. So according to the cardinal utility or satisfaction can be measured numerical terminology. माने एक्जाक्टली कहबार अर्थ होछि जे यूटिलिटी को आमे मेजरमेंट कर पारे. यूटिलिटी अर्थ आमे कोन कहितले प्रीवियस माने आमे प्रीवियसली आमे यूटिलिटी अर्थ कोन कहछन. यूटिलिटी अर्थ होछि wants satisfying capacity of goods. That means goods and services have possessed some of the utility values. So तार थॉट्स से सपोज गोटे पर्सन एप्पल को कंज्यूम करला तार सैटिस्फैक्शन को हमें मेजरमेंट करि पारे न्यूमेरिकल मेजरमेंट करबा. सो देयर इज सम ऑफ द इमेजिनरी यू मेजरमेंट व्हिच इज बेसिकली नोन एज द यूटिल्स. माने गोटे टूल बाहर करा है जो टूल रो गोटे इमेजिनरी टूल जो टूल को हमें कोन कंसीडर करछन यूटिल्स. माने गोटे एप्पल खाइला परे आमे केते यूटिल्स पाइबा बा केते यूटिल माने मु गोटे एप्पल्स खाइला परे मु केते यूटिलिटी पाइबी ताको यूटिल्स काउंट हो. सपोज मु गोटे एप्पल खाइली तार सपोज सेथुर मते 20 सैटिस्फैक्शन मिलला तो मु कहबी जे 20 यूटिल्स पाइली सेट. ऑरेंज रे सेम सिमिलर वे मु कहबी 20 यूटिल्स पाइली. सो कार्डिनल यूटिलिटी अनुसार हम कोन करि परबा यूटिलिटी को हम कोन करि परबा मेजरमेंट कर परबा न्यूमेरिकल मेजरमेंट कर परबा ना. एटा हम कहि परबा न्यूमेरिकल हम मेजर करछन क्वांटिटेटिवली मेजर करछन थ्रू द यूटिल्स. माने गोटे पर्सन गोटे सपोज एप्पल को कंज्यूम कला पर 20 यूटिल्स सेथु पाउची ऑरेंज को कंज्यूम कला पर 20 पाउची सपोज मनकर कहबा कि बनाना को मनकर कंज्यूम कले सपोज सी 50 यूनिट यूटिल्स पाउची तो तार सैटिस्फैक्शन को हमें कोन करछन इटा मेजरमेंट करछन थ्रू द यूटिल्स सो व्हेन टॉकिंग अबाउट द रियल लाइफ in practical scenario utility it is a mental stress. It is basically while you talking about the utility it is one satisfying capacity that means it is a psychological in nature. It is a psychological in nature. It is a mental feelings. So we can't measure the utility. That's why we are developing the ordinal utility analysis. So let's talking about what are the problems of cardinal utility and how these problems are make situations that the different economists are further developed a model which is known as the another approach which is known as the ordinal utility analysis approach. So let's talking about different problems of cardinal utility analysis. So what are the problems? So first problem, utility can't measure numerically. So हमें कहले कि why it is why we can't measuring the utility because it is a subjective and psychological in nature. Utility यार अर्थ हमें कौन कहले want satisfying capacity. सो तार अर्थ ये कौन ये गोटे साइकोलॉजिकल इन नेचर मान ये होचे मेंटल फीलिंग्स सो जनकर मेंटल फीलिंग्स को हम केमदी मेजरमेंट कर पाए सपोज मनकर मु गोटे एप्पल खाइली एथुर मते 20 मिलिला ना 40 मिलिला ना 50 मिलिला हाउ कैन यू मेजर. So utility can't measure numerically because it is a subjective and psychological. Basic कथा उस first कथा उची जे ये होचे mental feelings. ताको हमें measurement कर परिबन. ये subjective मध्य suppose मनकर suppose मते apple मु apple खाइला परे suppose मते 20 utils मिलला. Suppose मु रुद्र को same apple देली. से खाइला परे से कहला कि नहीं सर मते 50 मिलला. सेम एप्पल मनकर मु पवित्र को देली से कहले कि नहीं सर मते 100 मिलला. That is a subjective in nature. Maybe I prefer less apple, maybe Rudra prefer more, or maybe the Pavitra prefer more than me. So utility can be measured numerically. हम जो कहली जे यूटिलिटी को हमें केमती कार्डिनल एनालिसिस रे हम मेजरमेंट करछन ना यूटिल्स रे ए जो यूटिल्स टा गोटे क्वांटिटेटिवली मेजरमेंट करछ. सो जनकर साइकोलॉजिकल फीलिंग्स मेंटल फीलिंग्स को हमें केबे मेजरमेंट कर परिबनी. सो इट इज ए सब्जेक्टिव साइकोलॉजिकल इन नेचर. सब्जेक्टिव रत होची जब बेसिकली इट इज वेरी पर्सन टू पर्सन. आई एम गेटिंग 20 यूटिल्स, रुद्र गेटिंग 50 यूटिल्स, पवित्र गेटिंग around 100 utils. So utility very good. So utility can be measured. So let's talking about the second. So what are the problem of the second one? So unrealistic assumptions of the constant marginal utility of money. So here we are talking MUM means marginal utility of money. Marginal utility of money. So अच्छा जदि हमें कहबा कार्डिनल यूटिलिटी रो प्रॉब्लम कथा कहबा. सो सेकंड प्रॉब्लम होची जब मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी ऑफ मनी थ्रू आउट द टाइम कांस्टेंट बट इन रियल लाइफ इट इज नॉट कांस्टेंट. मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी ऑफ मनी सपोज 100 रो मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी जहा थिबो 1000 रो मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी ओवरली माने जदि कहबा हाई इंक्रीज करबो. When the income increases that means that proportionately the utility of the person can be increases even though there is a comparison between the rich and poor. Rich and poor, there is a comparison between the rich and poor. Rich and poor, there is a comparison between the rich and poor. Rich and poor, there is a comparison between the rich and poor. Rich and poor, there is a comparison between the rich and poor. Rich and poor, there is a comparison between the rich and poor. Rich and poor, there is a comparison between the rich and poor. Rich and poor, there is a comparison between the rich and poor. Rich and poor, there is a comparison between the rich and poor. Rich and poor, there is a comparison between the rich and poor. Rich and poor, there is a comparison between the rich and poor. Rich and poor, there is a comparison between the rich and poor. Rich and poor, there is a comparison between the rich and poor. Rich and poor, there is a comparison between the rich and poor. Rich and poor, there is a comparison between the rich and poor. Rich and poor, there is a comparison between the rich and poor. Rich and poor, there is a comparison between the rich and poor. Rich and poor rich and poor. So suppose 100 ta poor marginality higher as compared to the richer. Richer have a less marginal utility than the poor. Poor people paying 100 ta marginal utility higher as compared to the richer. अंबानी की 100 टका फरक पड़िबनी कि गोटे लेबर को 100 टका बोली अधिक फरक पड़े. So there is an unrealistic assumption constant marginal utility of money. The marginal utility of money can be varied. It is increases with the increasing the value of the money. So there is an unrealistic assumptions. So it is a unrealistic assumption हिसाब रे हमें consider करबा in the cardinal utility analysis, basically while we talking about the measurement. So third one is based on the introspection, observing own mental feelings. तार अर्थ होची सपोज मनकर मु रुद्र को मु कोन करली गोटे एप्पल देली तक पचारला बेले से कहले कि सर मते 20 सैटिस्फैक्शन और यूटिल्स कारण हम मेजरमेंट करछन यूटिल्स. सो ये कहले कि व्हाट इज इंट्रोस्पेक्शन. बेस्ड ऑन द इंट्रोस्पेक्शन मींस मु रुद्र को पचारियो पड़छ माने रुद्र तार ओन मेंटल फीलिंग्स को कि कोन करछ मोर से तो शेयर करछ. सो तार अर्थ होची इट मे बी मैनिपुलेटेड ताको एग्जैक्टली ताको 100 मिली तो मते 20 दे देला मते 20 कहला सर मते 20 की लागु. दैट मींस it is based on the introspection means observing own mental feelings. से निजर mental feelings को observe करछ और से that means से true behavior false behavior. So basic माने तार कहबार अर्थ होची बेसिकली मोर कहबार अर्थ होची it is a difficult task to observing own mental feelings को express करबाटा problem as. So it is based on the introspection and observing own mental feelings that might be a problems in the cardinal utility analysis. So let's talking about another one which is known as the ignore consumer preference and ranking. Here I am measuring the utility are measuring. We are not talking about the ranking. We are not talking about the preference. Suppose मु गोटे एप्पल खाइला परे मते 20 यूटिल्स मिलछ. बट रसगोला सपोज गोटे रसगोला प्लेट सेतिर खाइला बेले सपोज मनकर मते 100 मिलछ यूटिल्स. सेम एप्पल राजू खाइला बेले सपोज 100 पाउच. सेम रसगोला प्लेट राजू जदि कंज्यूम करियो सपोज मनकर ताको 70 मिलछ. That means there is a variation of the preference. Maybe I prefer rasgulla over apple. That's why I am getting 100 utils from the rasgulla and 20 utils from the apples. Or same, there is a vice versa scenario. Raju maybe prefer more apple than the rasgulla. So here we are not discussing about the ranking and preference. Basically we are talking about the utils deriving from consuming the goods and services. So there is a ignore consumer preference and ranking in cardinal utility analysis. In the same, here we are talking about the assumptions of independent utility. For example, suppose मनकर टी अछि तो suppose मनकर गुडे पर्सन if a person consuming tea and get 20 utils. Suppose same person if taking biscuit and getting 40 utils. So in cardinal utility analysis they are measured independently, but in reality चाहा सहित मनकर टी सहित मनकर बिस्किट मिल गले तार अर्थ होची यूटिलिटी कोन हबो इनक्रीज हबो. So they are separated. According to the cardinal utility analysis, the independent measurement of the utility. Zero utility alaga, biscuit utility alaga. But in practical life, it may be increased. So these are the some of the basic problems are arises in the cardinal utility analysis. So there are some of the other economists which developed, they are developed some of the another approaches in the economy in order to utility. So let's discuss about the ordinal utility analysis. So what is ordinal utility analysis? Edgeworth 1881 रे डेवलपमेंट करथिले पारटो 1906 रे इंडिफरेंस कर्व ड्रा करके से ताको डेवलप करथिले फॉर्मली जदि डेवलपमेंट कथा कहबा we are talking about the Higgs and RJD Allen, J Higgs and RJD Allen. So while you talking about the formally development of the ordinal utility analysis, it is basically developed by John Higgs and RJD Allen in the year 1934 in his their joint published work, a reconsiderations of the theory of value. And Professor John Higgs basically developed a model which basically work which is value and capital, under which he explained about the indifference curve analysis. Basically the ordinal utility analysis formally developed by Professor Higgs and RJD Allen. No matter how Professor Pareto and Professor Edgeworth also developing the ordinal utility analysis. So while we're talking about the ordinal utility analysis, there are so many approaches are in there, such as the indifference curve approach, such as the reveal preference indifference curve approach, basically developed by formally developed by J Higgs and RJD Allen, and reveal preference approach which is developed by Paul Samuelson. There is another different approaches such as the behavioral ordinal utility analysis. Basically it is the bounded rational model, and similarly we have Von Neumann and Mongerston model, which is known as the expected utility model. There are some of the approaches are in ordinal utility analysis. So in our successive classes we will be discussing about different approaches in briefly. So today we will learn about ordinal utility analysis. Basically आमे ordinal utility analysis रा आज आमे छोटे glimpse नबा. So cardinal utility पर हमरो ordinal utility. So while we are talking about the ordinal utility, here we are talking about the ranking and preference and choices among different alternatives. So here we are talking, while we are talking about the ordinal, so here we are talking about the ranking preference and choices. We are not talking about the measurement. We are not talking about the measurement. We are not talking about the measurement. Rather than we are measuring the utility, which is not possible in the real life, because utility it is a psychological nature, it is a mental feelings. But we can compare the utility. We can rank the utility. That means ordinal utility is quite better than the cardinal utility. Here we are not talking about the measurement. Here we are talking about the ranking, preference, and the choices among the different alternatives. माने previously जेतबे हम कहबा cardinal utility रे हम कहली एप्पल ए थ्रू हमें 20 यूटिल्स पाउथले. सपोज रसगोला ए थ्रू हमें 100 यूटिल्स पाउथले. सॉरी 100 यूटिल्स पाउथले. So it is a mental feeling, so we can't measure that. But while we're talking about the ranking and preference. Suppose ଗୋଟେ example ନେଇଯିବା. Suppose we have a different consumption bundle. Suppose consumption bundle A, consumption bundle B, consumption bundle C. Suppose ଏଇଟା ମନେକର ପିଜ୍ଜା, ଏଇଟା ବର୍ଗର, ଏଇଟା ଅଛି ମୋମୋ. So it is difficult to measuring the satisfaction and the utility are deriving while consuming the goods and services. So we can rank them, we can compare them. মানে ମୁଁ କହିପାରିବି ଯେ I preferred, if there is a 3 consumption bundle are available, I preferred A over B. Suppose ମନେକର suppose ମତେ 3ଟା ଅପସନ ଆପଣ ଦେଲେ, option A consumption bundle, B consumption bundle, C consumption bundle. Suppose consumption bundle A को ମୁଁ ଚୁଜ କଲି, ମାନେ ପିଜ୍ଜା ବର୍ଗର ମୋମो, ମତେ ପଚାରିଲେ ସାର୍ ଆପଣ କୋଉଟା ନେବେ, ତ ମୁଁ କହିଲି କି ବେଟର ହବ ମୁଁ ପିଜ୍ଜା ନେଇଯିବି. So I preferred A over B. Suppose କହିଲେ କି ସାର୍ ଗୋଟେ କାମ କରିବା, A ଆପଣଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ଅପସନ, B ଆଉ C ବର୍ଗର ଆଉ ମୋମୋର କୋଉଟା ନେବେ, ମୁଁ କହିଲି ଗୋଟେ କାମ କର ବାବା ମତେ B ଦେଇଦେ, I prefer B over C, ମାନେ ବର୍ଗର ଓଭର ମୋମୋ. ସୋ ଯଦି ମନେକର କହିବା କି ସାର୍ ଆପଣଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ 3ଟା ଯାକ ଆଭେଲେବଲ ଅଛି, ଆପଣ ଆରେଞ୍ଜିଂ କରନ୍ତୁ, ତ ମୁଁ ଏଠି ଇଜିଲି ଆରେଞ୍ଜିଂ କରିପାରିବି. ସପୋଜ I preferred pizza consumption bundle A over B and I preferred B over C. तो फास्ट रैंक रे किए आसला, फास्ट रैंक रे किए आसला, फास्ट रैंक रे आसला तमरो पिज्जा, सेकंड रैंक रे किए आसला तमरो बर्गर, थर्ड रैंक रे किए आसला मोमो. So we can't measure the utility, but we can rank the utility, we can compare the utility deriving from the different goods and services. So that's why the ordinal utility analysis is more developed version as compared to the cardinal utility analysis. When you're talking about the cardinal utility, here there is some of the problems are arises while measuring the utilities. But there is a quite easy and simple in the ordinal utility analysis if we are measuring the utility in ordinal approaches. In this video, this was just an introductory part. I am new to this platform, so your support and suggestion would mean a lot. If you like the content, please like, share and subscribe. In our successive classes, we will discuss this topic in greater depth. Thank you so much.